This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
It's the Dirty Laundry Game-Worn Hockey Podcast.
We're old school, right? We wash our own dirty laundry.
The name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
I refuse to be judged by a grown man wearing a hockey jersey.
Game on! Game on!
We are back with the Dirty Laundry Game-Worn Hockey Podcast, episode 47. We are cranking through this. I want to thank everybody who's listened so far. I always run the numbers to see as we do different episodes. Last week was a popular one with the Avalanche, and they had a disaster of an auction. A lot of people pissed. With that, it pushed us over 10,000 listens across all our episodes, so thank you for all of that. The likes, the follows, and the supportive messages. We're always looking to bring new people on when we do the big group chat. So if you want to reach out to me, Wade, Paul, or anybody else that's been on as a regular, please do that. This week, I've been chasing this man down, I think since close after I started the podcast, trying to schedule it. This man is busy as hell. A local to me, being in the St. Louis area, the Goalie Gear Nerd. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to do this.
For people who don't know who the Goalie Gear Nerd is, you track, and correct any of this if I'm wrong, it's just what I've learned from following you, track all the stuff going on in the NHL, the minor leagues, of what guys are getting, the new gear coming out by all the companies. And some people may ask, well, why are you having him on? Well, a lot of us also collect goalie gear. Be it the gloves, the pads, the whole setups. The number of guys I know that have full setups that were worn in the Stanley Cup and things like that is insane. So I wanted to bring you on and explain, kind of tell everybody how you track this and just how you got started doing this stuff.
Yeah, so this is a continuation of an obscure obsession that I had, and I've had since I was a kid. So I was, this is going to age me here, but I was the kid that got all of the equipment catalogs and things like that. And when mom and dad would go, hey, we're going out to dinner, or we're going to go run some errands, I'd grab the catalogs, 3 or 4 of them, the Gunzos, the Oceans catalogs, the M Sports, and we'd jump in the car and I would just kind of thumb through them, just ad nauseum, looking at what's out, what's interesting. I started playing when I was about 9, 10-ish, and it was the gear that got me most interested in hockey. My mom was a card collector. She had a picture, she had a card of Kirk McLean in his black Vaughns and the iconic mask with the Canucks. And I when I saw that, I was like, I don't know what this dude is doing, what sport he's playing, but this is really cool. And started playing and started kind of getting involved and became a goalie, and then kind of progressed 30 plus years later, kind of realizing that I have this very obscure but very deep knowledge of a very specific area, and kind of started Goalie Gear Nerd as a bit of a brain dump of saying, well, I think this stuff's interesting, and started putting that out on social media and thinking I might find an audience of a couple of hundred like-minded individuals. And then one thing led to another, and found that there are more people that share this passion than myself, and kind of away it's gone. And it's been about 7 years now, I think, 7, 8,
wow.
Almost.
And it's crazy to see, and for anybody that follows you on social media, to see who gives you retweets, what shows up from where, and just the amazing advanced knowledge you have, I guess, for lack of a better word, of what these guys are testing, what they're trying out, what company's developing what things, and then you're doing your own reviews or getting stuff from other places. And it's amazing to watch and to get excited. And again, I got started much later. I didn't even really start playing hockey till I was 17, 18 years old.
Okay.
We had a junior team here with as I was just a little bit older, as a mutual friend that we have in Mike McKenna.
Yes.
Seeing him play and just getting to know him then. And then shortly down the road, reached out as he was starting to play more. Hey, I realized I was full right, reached out. Have you got some gear laying around? Sold me his junior set, and I started playing in that. And the old those old Bowers and the old pillows, as it were, compared
Yeah.
to the modern stuff, and just to watch the how much goalie stuff has changed since really the mid '90s when I tracked it, and it's nuts. Like you mentioned, those catalogs. Of course, the young people are like, "What the hell's a catalog?"
What's a
Those
catalog?
are
Yeah.
entertainment in the back seat of a car. You
Yes.
that or look out the window. So,
Yeah.
but you're right. Is looking at those crazy designs, the mask designs, the what people were doing, the leaders, and I actually consider you one of those because you're staying on the cutting edge of this equipment and talking to the manufacturers and demoing this stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You know, it was something that really fascinated me, and I was really interested in doing, and just fascinated about in general. And when I was 16, the first hockey store in St. Louis was opening, and I got a job there, and I found, now I had access to all the catalogs from the companies themselves. It wasn't just the other retailers. And I found out quickly that these parents would come in, and at that time, a set of leg pads was $500-600. Obviously, it's significantly more now. But I found that they were appreciative of the fact that I was so obsessed with this topic. I could actually inform them with good information when they made these big financial decisions. The kids would come in and say, "What's so and so wearing?" And all of a sudden, I kind of found that this actually has some degree of usage. So that's kind of was my first professional setting, was on the retail side. And then I ended up working actually for some smaller equipment makers. I worked on social media side with a couple of brands, but I got to work on the gear side with the actual equipment makers, and one in particular. But during that time, I loved what everyone else was doing. I thought it was so fascinating. And one of the things that kind of handcuffed me at that time, this is again 7-8 years ago, was I was doing business development sales for one company, and I was doing social media for another company. But I saw all the other companies were doing out there, and I thought it was fascinating and interesting. And it is an area, an obscure area of expertise, and these things are very expensive. And what is, I think, what's most important and unique is that equipment for goalies, unlike a lot of other sports, is not only to keep us safe, it's also how we affect our sport. It's how we actually play the game. A bat doesn't do anything but hit a ball. It doesn't protect anybody. But a catcher is supposed to use his shin guards as a method of protection, not to stop the ball. Hockey is totally different. We wear so much of this stuff. There's so much of it, of the function is critically important to us. Obviously, the protection element as well. So, kind of you put all that together, and I realized that, hey, this is something that a topic where maybe on social media behind the Goalie Gear Nerd brand, and not me personally, I could put information about, hey, this is how you size leg pads. Hey, isn't this interesting that this company is doing that? And here's the why. And a lot of it was a lot of that, and again, more of a brain dump. And then finding out that people really kind of enjoyed that. And to your point, doing that at the beginning and really being blown away by not only, again, finding an audience larger, faster than I thought I would, but also the brands and how great they've been, and reaching out and saying, look, we appreciate what you're doing. We can see what you're trying to do. Hey, we actually would like to pick your brain. You're a third party to us, and getting to help actually literally kind of be in the room with them while they come up with some ideas and saying, hey, you're an outside voice, and what do you think about this? We've been batting this idea around for a little while, but what do you think? What do you see? And being able to do that with them is kind of a dream come true for the 8, 9, 10-year-old me.
Oh, of course, because I mean, just using Bauer as an example, because one of those pads are sitting back there, or CCM, either one is. They have all the guys, like you said, in the room, and they see that stuff every day, and they get this tunnel vision, for lack of a better word, because they see it every single day. You're a goalie, you're a fan. You look at, just besides, oh, that looks cool, and you learn the mechanics and the thing, and no, and I think that's awesome that they saw that. Again, you're an outsider, but that knowledge is deep enough to go, okay, you're an expert opinion, but outside you've built your name. And I think that's so amazing that companies, because so often you see companies, oh, our social media guy knows this better, or can make this look better. No, the people that have done it on their own seem to actually excel much further.
Yeah, but I would be clear that I think a lot of what I always say this to the brands, it's not always what I think personally is X, Y, and Z. A lot of it is what the audience, the people that follow and comment on my posts are doing. I read all of that, and I try to, for lack of a better way of putting it, kind of be a voice and be able to just kind of distill that feedback that's out there.
Sure.
And if they say, look, like, what is it? What do you think about the graphic we did last year? They're not really asking me. They're asking kind of like based upon everything I've seen in the market and what the audiences are telling are saying, are the goalie gear nerds are saying, what's the perception? And sometimes I go, oh, well, people liked it. They came around to it. Or sometimes I had this conversation with a brand a while ago, and I was like, they didn't love it, and the brand went, we thought so. Now you validate it. Thank you for telling us.
But
So
at least they take both sides of that criticism too.
yes.
It's just, yeah, your guys say it, but okay, we don't really care that much about them, these 5 people, because whatever. But I'm glad that they're receptive both ways.
Yes. Yes. And and they really are, again, try to getting information from the marketplace. And it's a lot more, it's to your point. It's not, the companies are not sitting around in a windowless room just throwing out ideas of how to make money. It really is feedback driven. The amount of testing and some, again, kind of being able to peek behind the curtain to some of the companies, the amount of testing that they do and studying they do to build the products. They're not just saying, let's just change one little thing and call it something new and charge $100 more. It is astonishing the level they go to develop their products. And the game's getting so fast and the positions change so much since you and I have been playing it that they've got to keep up with it.
Sure. And as I get older and fatter and slower, I need lighter gear to wear. And it's
same.
And it's crazy how far that's coming. And last year I did an alumni event here in Springfield with the Junior Blues. And of course, Mike came to that, played in it. And I had his Junior Blue set of Bauer reactors and his very last NHL Pro set with Philadelphia, the one that they covered in tape to because they were the I'm blanking on the team. All of a sudden, the Senators,
the Senators set, yeah,
that they had to put tape over to match Philly. But even still, it was how much weight difference and then all the design difference from 96 to what 2016, 2017 in there. I mean, 20 years, a lot of things you don't see changing that much, but goalie stuff, holy cow.
Yeah, you look at a perfect example is, I have some, baseball gloves from when I was, 10 years old. And, with all possible respect to baseball and to Rawlings and all those companies, they've changed, but not nearly to the degree that, like the leg pads behind me changed. When you and I are playing, when Mike and I literally grew up together. And so when Mike and I were, 10, 11, 12, going to goalie camps, we were dropping on the face of our pads, so the knees, this area. And there's a goalie that I play with on Monday nights. Actually, he's a bit older than I am, and we were actually commenting on that about how different he straps his pads than I do. And I realized, well, it's because when you drop, you're dropping on the face of the pads how they did it 20, 30 years ago. That's what he knows, and that's what he does, and that's what Mike and I were doing 30 years ago. Now the pads rotate. We've got this big old knee blocks on the side of it, and we're trying to get the face of the pad to rotate. It's completely changed. My kids, I got 2 boys who are both goalies. That would be a completely foreign concept. I think the way their pads are designed nowadays, they couldn't drop on the face of the pads if they tried. So yeah, you look at that only in 30 some odd years, they've completely changed the mechanics of how goalie pads are supposed to function. Not only in addition to all the materials being completely different, a baseball glove, it's still a baseball glove 30 years later. So it is kind of unbelievable the speed of change and things like that, which makes it really exciting for goalie gear nerds like you and I to go, wow, look at what they're doing now.
Yeah, and that they can continue to come out with new technology, new materials, lighter, faster, better. And I use the Bauer 2S is what I skate in, and the rebounds off those things are insane. And it took a little bit of getting used to because I was using the older Bauer pads, which more leather, so the puck wouldn't fire off near as far.
No.
But once you came into those, and it's like I get a hard rocket shot off those, and it's out to the blue line. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. It's funny. I have on my website, not to play my website, but I have like 40 or 50 catalogs, physical catalogs that I actually had like digitally imaged that
oh,
are there.
nice.
And I think that one of them is like a TPS catalog from, again, 30 some odd years ago. And they brag in it how it had essentially these perforations in the face that allowed that when the puck impacted it, it would kind of give with the puck at that time. Because at that time, they thought, "I'll keep the puck closer to you." To your point, it was only 10, 12 years ago that goalies realized, no. Actually, and it was, again, to Bauer's credit, when they were testing with Hank, they realized, no, if we can actually launch the puck further and give a goalie more time to recover, that's actually more ideal. And now everyone went from having really soft pads going, we got to stiffen up the face. Now everyone is trying to stiffen up the face. And every time I talk to a company, they're talking about, well, we've actually been able to make the face of the pad stiffer, so we're getting those more, those bigger rebounds. It's a big thing with CCM this year, and so it's that that puck velocity off the pad is, I mean, something you could never imagine 30 years ago.
It is, and it's funny because I've had some older guys come in the locker room, and they're used to older stuff, and they picked this up like, holy crap, it's so light. I'm like, you're telling me, and
yes,
and so going on to the collector side a little bit.
Yeah.
All of our listeners, who a lot of them collect goalie gear. I have, God, I think I've lost track of how many sets of mics I've got from over the years.
Yeah.
And again, but it's cool to set those side by side and see the transition. How, like, as goalies are testing stuff and coming up with their designs, and again, I don't want you to share any secrets or things like that, but how do you like seeing goalies develop their new, either with digiprint or something else, with their designs of how cool they are, be it for the Winter Classic or somewhere else?
Are you talking about the graphics themselves? Yeah, I think that's so cool that when 30 years ago, there was really one method and only a couple of companies that could do custom graphics. And it was, cut and sew. And those companies are doing it today, like with the Bryans and to a lesser extent Vaughn. They'll do the cut and sew custom graphics. And you really had to be pretty much a pro to get it. They were very, very, very rare. And it was a really cool time, though, because you have people like Trevor Kidd, that was kind of one of the first that had kind of that visual motif to his gear, be it the flames or be the checkerboard, things like that. Once digital printing technology started, it just changed everything. And I will say, again, I was fortunate enough to go up to Montreal some years ago and visit Bauer's R&D offices, where they really had developed and refined that printing technology. Is the same technology you see here with them. And it's unbelievable the lengths they had to go to be able to figure out, how do we basically put an image into a 3D product, because this actually wraps around into a 3D product that's also material that is inherently designed not to absorb moisture. All of this is designed so that no moisture can penetrate the surface. So, and also making it durable and things like that. So that's really fascinating. So to your point, in my conversations with pros, they really kind of come in three flavors, specifically when it comes to like the Winter Classic. You've got those guys invariably, they just don't care. They're like, it's still not.
That's
I don't
just
care.
the color of the team's jerseys. Moving on.
Yeah, and those guys are relatively few and far between. Quite honestly, more and more goalies, and pretty much all goalies you talk to gear about, sometimes they're a little bit with the graphics. But then the other really two buckets are those that have a specific kind of visual motif they're always using, they kind of always harken back to, and they'll do kind of a specific design for that, or they'll do something very specific to the Winter Classic. And I think it's so cool, because really now these are blank canvases. Some of them are really into it and they'll come up with their own designs. A lot of times they're working in collaboration with the brands. The brands have dedicated artists, and that's really what they are. That's all they do for that company, is they just work on custom graphics for their goalie division. And it's unbelievable. It's like this set behind me, I did this one with CCM as an homage to my favorite set of all time, which is a Heaton Pro 90Zs. as ones that Cujo wore specifically that really got me into it. And so when I was able to do this, so I want you to do that. This is all printed material. It's hard to see because the shadowing and things like that. And for them to be able to do that is just unbelievable. And it's fascinating.
And again, you're kind of have the pulse of the community is with this stuff. When Bauer and others were first starting to put that out, if I remember, some people were very turned off against it. Oh, it's not going to hold up. It's going to look like crap. And then you saw some of the first sets, like Mike did with Dallas with the old E-flexes and that. Everybody was like, oh wow, those are actually really cool. They thought they would look cheap and flat, but even looking at the CCMs behind you at a distance, I've had other people look at them and go, those have got to be actual leather strips. Nope, sure not. That's all printed.
No, this is all printed on, and it did take some time to refine for all those companies. And if you look at Freddie Anderson and some Mike's first sets and things like that, and the companies are first to it, first ones to admit that, hey, look, it took some time to refine the testing, and all of them are constantly doing that. It's the nature of the beast, but they wanted to get them out, and they've gotten better and better and better. I know Bauer's added more colors this year and things like that. And it's really cool. And the All-Star games have some great ones. And what's always kind of a bummer, and going back to the collector side of things, is there's been several years where for an All-Star game, specifically an All-Star game, I know there was like a set that was made for Freddie Anderson, and he decided he wasn't going to wear them. I think they came later. He was really happy with the gloves. There was some reason why he decided to, I was going to wear my normal set of gear. I think it was I've been in Toronto at the time, and I had gotten pictures of it, and I was like, oh, they're so cool. But I think they said, hey, Freddie, can we make you a set? And he was like, that's cool. But he said, nah, I'm good. I'm just going to wear my regular set. Those ones I think is so cool because it is kind of super collector's, addition to it. And because of the manufacturing now, it's not like, again, when I was growing up, all the goalies had, a set of gear. They'd go through several sets of pads a year, 5-6 sets of gloves, but that was their allotment for the year. Nowadays, and speaking to the brands, they have some idea of, okay, when All-Star games are getting ready to lead up, I'll usually have like meetings with them, and they'll say, okay, we think so-and-so is gonna make the All-Star team, so we might do this graphic. We're already talking to them about this. And if someone gets on, surprisingly, they might call them real quick and say, hey, how about this? And they can get into production and out to them lightning fast, which is all the more reason why it makes so much cooler, because now, again, that collector market is not only do you have a set of Binnington's pads, you can have a set of Binnington's All-Star game pads. So I think that's really cool.
Isn't it crazy how fast that turnaround's become with all that gear, with even the mask side of things now with the vinyl wrapping, and how far that technology's changed. I mean, you'd look at turnaround of even us as beer leaguers, you're much better than I am, I guarantee it. But the time it would take to get it painted, when send it off, and in 2 weeks I have it back vinyl wrapped, and it's amazing. And I've done a couple blue sets with the permission of the artist. The newest one I wear is Brodeur's artist, the
cool.
blues design, and got his artist reach out to her, got her permission. She said, I'd rather me paint it for you, but she understood the cost. And then she reached out to one of the big vinyl wrap guys, who she was, ironically enough, the whole reason I found out about it is, and I feel terrible because I'm blanking out on his name at the moment, but he was wrapping Brodeur's blues helmet, but wrapping it for his son in the team he was playing for, and recycling the blues one. He posted it up. It's Mark Magnotti
from Skin FX. Yep. I wondered if it was Mark. I didn't want to blur it out if it was someone else.
No, and she commented, so then it was a big circle. He was great to do the vinyl, and it's gorgeous. I love that design.
I agree. I will tell you, this is a Skin FX wrap. Like, this is actually a wrap.
I thought he had done yours as well.
Yep. He's done several of my, he's done masks for my kids. He's done 3 or 4 for me. And he's amazing. I'll give you a cool story about him. So about and I have to do a post on it at some point soon, but Devin Cooley, when he was traded, I'm going to screw up which teams he was going to, but basically he was near, cause Mark is based out of like Rochester area. And he was like, he got a phone call, and it was within an hour that they basically say, look, Devin's got to leave. He's got to get on a plane. Is there any way you can make a wrap for him real quick? Just print it, bring it to us, give it to him, and so he can get on a plane, and then he can go. And he goes, we just get traded to the Sharks. And so he can have it day one. And people were shocked that literally that night, he all of a sudden, he already had San Jose art on his mask. And it's like, well, yeah, because he was able to literally within an hour do it. Mark does incredible work. He does stuff for Team USA, for Canada. But like to your point, the ability to basically wrap, and these are extremely durable. They're cheaper, but it gives goalies an option to, like that in those situations, get no more guys wearing white masks and stuff like that for a little while. When they get traded, they can get art on there immediately when they're going off and playing the World Championships right now. He's doing all of their masks. It's unbelievable.
And small funny story with Devin Cooley. He actually played here in Springfield 1 year for the Blues. Played 10 games, but was here. So now I got to track down one of his jerseys because I try and get pros that were in Springfield. So talking to my Sharks friends, that's going to be expensive. But so now I'll ask you, because I know you've got a ton of gear. Have you gotten anything from any pros, or is there any pro that you'd want to collect if you could?
Ooh, that's tough. I always talk about it was, Cujo's gear that, and Cujo in St. Louis wearing his Heatons, they were iconic. Obviously anything Brodeur, I was a huge Brodeur fan growing up. It's interesting the fact that Brodeur is here in St. Louis quite often. His kids are here. We bump into him quite often. I'm not like, he has no idea who I am. Sure. But his son knows my son, so they usually end up talking, and then I have to sheepishly introduce myself again.
There you go.
To him. I'd say if there is one thing I always think about, like, what's my kind of holy grail, assuming like it's not a Patrick Waugh, because I wore 33. My kids wore 33 because of him. So anything that Patrick Waugh, I think that would be part of my holy grail. I always ask people, what's like your obscure goalie that you'd love something from that probably doesn't mean anything to anyone else, but if you could have like that one piece from that one goalie that means a lot to you. And again, this might be dating myself, but I loved Vincent Riendeau when he was here in St. Louis. He had the Jofa helmet and the white cage and things like that. That combo. And I have a stick. My parents got me a stick of his, and it was a birthday present. I thought it was the greatest thing. It's still hanging in my office. Anyway, I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. So I would say anything that I could collect from, and I have one of Marty's sticks as well. But I would say anything that's Cujo, Waugh, anything like that, or obscure from like Riendeau. I'm all about it.
Those are all great picks. I love it. I actually own, and I was told it came from the Blues. There's no particular name on it, but I have both a player stick and a goalie stick. The old Northland goalie stick, where it's the straight all wood. My God, those are heavy.
They're clubs. They're absolute clubs.
For what we pick up now in the new Trues, the Bowers and stuff, it is insane. Even just the difference in those.
Well, and the performance difference. And I was talking to a goalie last night. I was on the ice coaching, and we were talking that we were watching a player shoot, and this player had gone down a bunch of flexes and a really whippy stick. And we were talking about what that did to that player's shot. And he was asking me, he was like, well, why don't goalies have flexes on their stick? And I was kind of explaining them kind of some of the mechanics and why, and also just logistically why, with so many sizes and curves, and it's not possible. But I said to him, I said, when back in my day, growing up, I mean, it was just sizes. It was one curve if you got a curve at all, if it wasn't a straight blade, and the amount of technology and the weight is just non-existent now in the sticks. It's incredible. It is absolutely, the technology involved now in hockey sticks is just amazing to me.
And it is. And I'd love just once to get several goalies together and bring out the old stuff and make them try to play in it.
Yeah. And it's funny because, when I was playing, it was, you're going to get hit sometimes where it hurts. That's inevitable. Like, it's just the gear can only do so much. And now when I work with younger goalies, I typically, my mantra to them is, look, if you're facing the puck and you're in a ready stance, that a gear is designed now that it's probably not going to, especially in the younger age, it's not going to hit you in an area that it hurts. So a lot of goalies have to kind of, they have to get away from that reaction,
Yep, the
that
flinch.
flinching reaction. And I'm like, look, you do that, you're exposing a lot of unprotected areas. Trust the gear. If you're facing the puck square on, and more often than not, it's going to hit you in some padding because it's so all encompassing now. Again, when I was a kid, it was that's not true. It's still gonna hit you. It's still gonna hurt you.
Yeah, you don't get the stingers that everybody talked about, and
Yeah.
this stuff is built out of the box and ready to go, and I love that about the technology. And
Right.
I mean, we've covered so much in a short amount of time. I know you've got some stuff coming up later today. You need to get to before we go. I definitely want to make sure you get all your social media out there.
Oh, thanks. So yeah, no, again, it's Goalie Gear Nerd. I'm primarily on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter or X, whatever you call it
Whatever it's
nowadays.
called this week.
Whatever it's called nowadays. And it's usually where you and I speak. I do have a URL. It's goaliegearnerd.com. That's a little bit of information is dated. Some of it's more in-depth product reviews, kind of stuff for goalie parents, sizing, hacks. Why does a pro wear a strap on his boot? As goalie wear a strap on his boot when this one doesn't, kind of explaining some of that stuff. But primarily you'll find me on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, I'm, anyone ever has a question, I try to respond to every message I can get. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, super active, and it's just amazing. I mean, whatever goalie you're following, if you do collect or you've got somebody is coming up, you're probably going to see the designs on the Goalie Gear Nerds Instagram as those come out. I mean, it's amazing, this stuff, because oh yeah, this person's testing this today, and just those kind of stuff to see if they even stick with it. It's cool to see those things.
Yeah, and this is now that we're getting into the off season for some teams. Obviously, the playoffs are still very much happening for others, like St. Louis. But you'll start seeing guys on the ice, and they'll try other things because unlike other sports. Again, two things. One, the product offerings from different companies are vastly different. So it's not like, again, not to pick on baseball, but a Rawlings can probably make a glove that fits a lot, that probably works a lot like a Wilson. There's not going to be a huge disparity there. But in terms of like goalie pads, there are some proprietary things in there that the two companies can't make identical gear. So pros are much more willing to try stuff out. And because it's so much driven in the performance of their overall game, they're going to try things out, and there's not as much financial incentives in this as there are other sports. So yeah, this off season time is usually, people always say, well, what's the seasonality of what you're doing? There is none. It's always different flavors. Now is when all the retail stuff is coming out, but in a month it's going to be all the off season and what are pros testing and things like that. Then we're going to get ready to do it all again. And I'm already working with several companies on their 2026 stuff. So this stuff never ends. It's always going. And for me, and again, someone who has a passion for it, I love it. And I love that, people like you and others love it as well.
And that passion is huge. And I know for the collectors that especially go to upcoming equipment sales this weekend, both Tampa and San Jose has theirs. A lot of people go for the goalie stuff, either to collect it or buy it and use it. And adapt to that. So because they can get a cool design, it's a hell of a lot cheaper than buying new stuff. And it's not overused like how we use it.
Yeah.
So,
well, and the companies buy the teams buy them, so that's why you're able to do that. And so that's always a common misconception that these brands are just giving them the gear, and it's a great time. As I said, I unfortunately I'm on the shorter side, so those pro sales I have to, if I can maybe get a stick back in the day, I could cut them down. Beyond that, unfortunately, most of this stuff doesn't fit me, but it's a great opportunity to buy some stuff and some stuff that's not out available to the public, quite frankly. So no, those are great sales.
Yeah, I'm 5'9", so in the case of using Mike's stuff, you'll laugh. I just kind of adapted to it and was able to adjust it to make it work because he's 6'4", 6'3", 6'4". So yeah, took a little bit of work, but no, I get it. And you go, I mean, the average goalie now is what, 6'4", 6'5".
Yes.
So you better be tall to wear that stuff, but it is, and people get excited about it. And the pricing is, when you can buy pads for $500 at a sale, either to show off or collect. Good luck with that. Thank you for all your time. It's been a fun discussion. Definitely want to have you on again at some point and touch on more things with goalies. And I hope it gave our collectors insight of how the other side of the process works, how these get designed, what the companies do, and all that. So I appreciate bringing this. And also, do you have any merchandise available? I know you've done some special stuff,
Yeah.
up a hat and some other things in the past.
Yeah, no, I will. I do have some hats. I'm gonna get more of that out, and I'll hopefully be doing that in the next couple of weeks. Things like this, I think some companies have made for me as a favor. But if if goalies want it, if collectors want it, I'm happy to do it. But yeah, I'll be putting out some merch, hopefully more in the next few weeks. For those again like-minded goalie gear nerds.
Awesome. Goalie Gear Nerd, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I say I've bragged about you for weeks as we were recording shows. I promised people were coming, and we got it done.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate the time. It's been a lot of fun.
Yep. We'll see you again soon.